Hello, everyone. Something a little different from previous episodes, but in keeping with the episode where I spoke to Hannah from Uber Rock, another photographer, about a recent piece of equipment that I bought, the Tourbox Neo. Now, I said at the time that I've only recently acquired it, and I was wondering how useful it was going to be. And as you can see, the Tourbox Neo is on camera too. But what I have here is some images in Lightroom Classic. Now, the Tourbox Neo only works in the Lightroom Classic, not the web-based version of Lightroom. So it's something to be aware if you do all your editing in the web-based version of Lightroom. But this is a typical Lightroom Classic layout. You open up Lightroom, you have basically your navigator page and your adjustments in the development module. And what I used to do previously to cull photographs quite quickly was I used to score 5 to see if they needed any minor adjustments, and anything that scored less than 5 was culled. So it made it quite easy to, when you come back from a gig where you may have taken several hundred photographs, to cull a lot of the poorer quality images quite easily. The problem arose that despite culling large numbers of photographs, you'd still have to spend a considerable amount of time adjusting all these sliders here that you'd see to actually develop your images. But the Tourbox Neo is actually quite a useful piece of kit. Even in this early stages, I've found that it makes adjusting settings quite easy. So rather than having to scroll up and down for the various settings that you want to adjust, they come up in the what they call the heads-up display of the Tourbox Neo. So I'm going to hopefully open up the Tourbox Neo and it should show in Lightroom. Excuse me a second. There you go. Now, what you have here is the Tourbox console. And you can see here the heads-up display that appears in Lightroom when you are looking to decide to edit the various things that you're talking about. Now, this is the Tourbox console that you can see, and you can see all the buttons that are on there and what they actually do. And it picks up a lot of combinations, so you can actually add even more combinations of various keyboard and mouse shortcuts should you wish to do so. But ultimately, I'm going to move the console out of the way so that what you see is the Tourbox console as it appears in Lightroom. So what you can actually do is you can see that these various dials and various things and what they do. And when you look at the actual console here, you can see the buttons and it tells you what the buttons actually do in the menu across here. So that's the knob. You can press it and it just selects sliders. That'll scroll. That one it'll dial, so it'll go from previous slide to next slide. Some of these actually have press commands as well, and some of them are not set. The side knob on the left-hand side of the toolbox will go to the previous slide. The top box will go to the next slide. The tall one can star rate your images. Okay. The short one is currently not set to anything, but you can adjust that anyway. And then there's this little view before button, or what they call the tool button. And then what you have is these D console buttons here that actually The one at the top that points up gives you some general settings. The one down gives you detail or effects. The one to the left gives you color grading. The one to the right gives you calibration and transformation. And also, should you wish to undo or redo without having to press Control or Command Z, you can actually see the undo and redo buttons are on these C1 and C2 here. So I'm now going to move this console out of the way and show you this in action. So hopefully, if I can remember what all these buttons do, then we should be able to see the toolbox in action. So as you see, what you have here. So what you have here is you have all the commands in what they call the heads-up display. Now the heads-up display actually shows you what you can do to remind you what sort of things you can actually do. Now previously, when I used to cull the images, as I said, I used to scroll through left and right using the left and right arrow keys, as you can see here. Okay, then I'd score them 5. Then I'd filter them 5 and edit the 5s. So it's a quick way of culling several hundred images, particularly where some maybe minor out of focus that need a little bit more work. So anyway, so that's how I used to cull my photographs previously. So I can set that one back to 0. Okay. Now, excuse me while I put my keyboard down, because I'm going to use the toolbox. Now, there are many videos on YouTube already about how to use the toolbox, but I thought I would give you a novice's idiot's guide to how to use the toolbox, assuming that I can remember what the controls do. So, as you can see, you have the toolbox on camera 2, and you have, there you are, you have the images on Lightroom Classic on one monitor, and you have the recording on the other one where you get to see me, camera 2, and the shared images. So, if you, as I said, if you wanted to go from one to the next, you could press the top button there, which will go to the next slide. Okay. Or you can press the right hand button here, which will go to the previous slide. Okay. So we go back, next slide. All right. And we go to previous slide. Now, as you can see, these images are actually quite different. This is Cam Cole. He's a busker from London who recently toured with Walter Trout. It's the second time I've seen Cam Cole. He's a very good musician. And this time around, he actually brought a friend on tour with him. Now, Cam has also appeared recently on an episode of Ted Lasso as a busker. So you may have seen him on Ted Lasso, if you see that. But he's a very clever musician. So all I'm doing now is pressing back and next, as you can see, previous and next on there. So now, should I want to score this, what I'm going to do is press what they call the tour menu, which is this. And I've altered the scale of this. You can do this in the toolbox menu to scale or put it whatever you want. But I've altered this. You can do it with the mouse, should you wish to. But as I said, if you want to score it as 5, you just score it as 5 and press the menu again. And see set rating to 5 comes up on the image. So you can filter all your 5 rated images quite easily. So that's how to score it. Okay. So you can go back and forth. You can go previous and next. You can score it quite easily. Now, then there are other options within the menus that you've got. This big button in the bottom left-hand corner also goes backwards and forwards. You can change these options, as I said, in the toolbox. So if you wanted to change it to zoom in or zoom out, then you could change that within the toolbox software quite easily. Okay. So now you had previous and next, you had up and down, you've had scoring. Now, once you've scored your images, what you generally want to do is adjust the images. Now, as you can see, what you have here in this heads-up display is these, excuse me, there we are, this D-pad, okay? And if you press the top one, it gives you your general settings. So should you want to adjust your exposure, you just scroll up to exposure using the scroll button on the top left-hand side. And when you get there, you just adjust your exposure by turning the central dial. And as you can see at this point here, you can see your exposure, not only within the image, but you can see the sliders adjust. Okay, so you can adjust the exposure. You scroll down, you can adjust the contrast. All right. So say you didn't like it, that you wanted to go back. As I said, these two little buttons on the top here, okay? The one is undo and the other one is redo. So you can undo and redo simply by pressing those buttons. Again, you can scroll down and choose other options like highlights, white shadows, texture, clarity, dehaze, etc. So they're all in your general settings. So if you wanted to go, there are transformation in the right-hand D button, so you can adjust the shadow tints if you wanted to. Again, you can choose your images. We go undo to that, take that back to 0. You can go back down, you can transform the vertical if you wanted to. You know, you can stretch it, whichever way you like. So whatever takes your fancy. Go back to 0. So that's the calibration transformation. The bottom one is the detail or the effect. So should you want to adjust the sharpening, you know, you can just increase the sharpening or decrease the sharpening. Whenever you, there you go, something you can see we could increase and decrease the sharpening. Okay. Should you want to do that, we'll press back to undo until it goes back to 0, back to where it was. Okay. And then the fourth and final button are your shadows and your colors and your grading. So you can adjust all those as well. So just by pressing these buttons, you can quite easily adjust your settings rather than having to find and scroll up and down the menus on the right-hand side in Lightroom Classic. Obviously, it is far more complicated. There's a lot more that you could do to this than what I've just shown you. But as I said, this will give you a basic understanding as to whether you think it's a worthwhile purchase or not. Personally, in the early days, I think it's going to be a very worthwhile purchase. But, you know, this is a personal opinion, and personal opinions are like noses. Everybody has one. So I hope you found this useful, and I'll repeat this as I get used to utilizing the Tourbox Neo and see what other things I can do with it. So there we are. Okay. Bye, folks.